our next news story for today. We briefly kind of referenced this a little bit. And again, it's piggybacking off the heels of the whole HBO Max situation. But previously, we said Legendary is not happy with what Warner Brothers has announced. Well, guess what? Neither is Christopher Nolan. Uh, Christopher Nolan, acclaimed film director, The Dark Knight trilogy, Memento, Inception, The Prestige, Tenet, Dunkirk. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. He is an incredible filmmaker. People love his work. He's the kind of film director that you go out to see the movie, not because John David Washington is starring in it, not because Christian Bale is starring in it, not because Guy Pearce is starring in it, but because Christopher Nolan directed the film. It's his movie. He crafted the story. That's why you go see a Christopher Nolan movie. And he has some very not kind things to say in regards to this. Let's jump into the article here from Deadline. Christopher Nolan, when being interviewed by, I believe it was Entertainment Weekly, they asked him about this whole situation, and he says here, quote, "Some of our industry's biggest filmmakers and most important movie stars went to bed the night before thinking that they were working for the greatest movie studio and woke up to find out that they were working for the worst streaming service." Ooh, sucker punch number one. As we scroll down in the article, Nolan said that the Burbank, California lot was dismantling an ideal distribution system between theaters and homes. Quote, "As we speak, they don't even understand what they're losing. Their decision makes no economic sense, and even the most casual Wall Street investor can see the difference between disruption and dysfunction." Ooh, zing zang. Speaking to ET Online, Entertainment Tonight online, the Tenet at the Tenet DVD press or whatever. It was at a press release for the movie Tenet. Nolan expressed his shock over how Warner Brothers didn't even give their top tier talent and filmmakers a heads up that the HBO Max theatrical plan was in the works. The 2021 slate, per Nolan, quote, "is meant to be out there for the widest possible audiences, and now they're being used as a loss lender for the streaming service, for the fledgling streaming service," as he goes on to clarify, without any consultation. There's a lot of controversy. It's very, 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 very messy, a real bait and switch. And he continues on to kind of like, just say how unsavory the situation is, but holy cannoli, Giancarlo. Christopher Nolan, really, he didn't pull any punches. I guess he could have slammed them a little bit harder, but this is pretty harsh speak. What's your knee-jerk reaction?
He's in a tough position because I feel like he's definitely a filmmaker that's built up kind of an allure about his movies that, as you said, they're people go to see them because they're Christopher Nolan movies, and he's kind of navigated that while doing like the franchise movie thing with his Batman movies. But he kind of got screwed in this because I guess his was one of the first big movies from this year that we realized had to kind of get dealt with, whether by pushing it back or not releasing it. So I understand his frustration, his public frustration. But at the same time, it's like people just can't go to the movies right now, and releasing these things in theaters. I don't know. It's a little silly. It's kind of a moot point, I feel like, because we shouldn't be going to see movies in theaters with the way everything's going on. Is he right that he's right that it's kind of crazy that all of this happened just so quickly and suddenly. But he's been kind of stewing in this for a while now because Tenet was supposed to come out a while back. It's it's interesting. It's interesting looking at this film in particular, just because he's kind of not in the franchise mode of movie making anymore. He's kind of making these one-off projects. And so like this not doing well means something specifically for him, when like Dune not doing well means something very different for them, considering they're banking on a sequel. And like Kong versus Godzilla versus King Kong is also like another. So it's just it's this frustration is palpable, but I also don't think it's the best. I don't know. I don't think it looks too good for him.
Yeah, he's caught between a rock and a hard spot. I mean, as
Yeah,
you say, like I put Christopher Nolan in the same category of filmmakers as I do uh, Quentin Tarantino,
sure.
obviously Spielberg.
So I feel like Quentin Tarantino on kind of the other hand of it, like he would be pissed off if this happened while one of his movies was coming out. But he's also somebody that has shown that he's very interested in how these streaming services are being used and how people will watch movies moving forward with the streaming services in their lives. So I'm curious to see how he would have reacted
That's
versus
true.
Chris
That's true.
Nolan. But
You know,
there's definitely the same allure.
I put him into that category because these are the types of filmmakers that make movies specifically designed for the theatrical experience. You know, again, I mentioned this on the show yesterday. Try watching The Hateful Eight on an iPhone in in the 70 millimeter super ultra widescreen. Like, no, it's not. It's not nowhere near the same experience as what it would be on the big screen. You know. Um, and so I understand Tenet was made, and you know, Christopher Nolan's even in a very interesting position where it was built into his contract that he was going to get a certain percentage of, I believe it was 30% of the box office. I may have to somebody fact check me on that. He may have received 30% of the box office, which would have been amazing because Tenet easily could have made $800 million. Easily. It made 350, but in a non-COVID world, easily it could have made $800 million. So
Yeah.
look at that percentage of box office and just put that right in Christopher Nolan's bank account. So he also is in a very precarious situation with these remarks. I mean, and here's another thing that very few people are talking about. Disney, Warner Brothers, Netflix, Hulu, all of the streaming services, nobody is releasing their numbers. No, they're not required to. I mean, if you want to talk about box office, how well did a movie do? We kind of gauge that off of box office in terms of popularity and also success, you know? The Invisible Man with Kate. I keep going back to the well of the Invisible Man because it just happened and it's an easy example. But
I legitimately just watched that movie like 2 days ago on HBO Max.
it's a great film. It's
Yeah,
so good.
it was very effective. I dug
It
it a
was made
lot.
on a shoestring budget. It was $7 million to make that film. It made $108 million at the box office. It like 10 decadruple, is that how you conjugate that? It made over 10 times well over 10 times like what their production budget was, right? So shoot, what's my point here? I was making a point. I'll have to rewind the video and see where I was building up towards. The whole point is that I'm just gonna make up a point because I can't remember what I'm saying.
That might have done well because they had this kind of release versus something otherwise. You were talking
Oh,
about
you can't gauge the success. Oh, okay, so The Invisible Man made $100 million, right? Tenet had the potential to make $800 million. So if you look at, this made 800, but this only made 100, you tend to think this did way better. Well, yeah, it also cost so much more to make this film. It needs to make 800 million. So
yeah.
in terms of success, how are we going to gauge success? What's that going to look like moving forward? Because Disney's not releasing their numbers. HBO Max is not releasing their numbers. Netflix, Hulu, blah, 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 blah. Amazon Prime, nobody's releasing the success rate of their numbers. Like, what does that look like? How many people are watching it? How many people watch the entire thing? How many people watch half? I don't know. I don't know how you gauge the success of a film when we can't like read the box office numbers.
Well, also, how do you gauge this success, especially this year, when you have all these streaming services that more than ever, because of everything going on, um, all their like kind of original content that they upload to these things, all of the Netflix original stuff, all of the HBO Max original series, Amazon is another one that has tons of things on there now, both series and movies. How do you gauge those successes? You know, the it's interesting that this is obviously becoming so public right now because this is a huge company and a bunch of huge movies. But there's other movies that come out besides these giant blockbusters, but they're the ones that tend to dominate the conversation when it comes to what's making the most money, how is this going to affect the film industry. There's like tons of other movies that have come out this year on these services that don't necessarily get theatrical kind of experience anyway. That it's interesting. We're kind of at this crossroads where I don't know, the kind of industry has to change because now more than ever it's being forced into kind of streaming services and not being just all about the giant movie making experience and going to theaters.
Now, okay, so I understand we've kind of gotten off topic just a hair, and we've spent a lot of time talking about this already. But going back to the heart of the question or the heart of the article, do you think that it's fair for Christopher Nolan to make these types of comments? Because, I mean, as we already pointed out, he's put into a very precarious situation. He's caught between a rock and a hard spot, right? So would it have been better for him? Would it have been better for everyone had he just kind of said, you know what, HBO Max needs to do what they need to do and put his personal feelings aside? Or do you think he's completely justified in voicing this opinion?
I think we live in a time where it's going to come out anyway now, just because of how kind of we are with social media. No, I think he's justified to feel this way. I mean, the article is Christopher Nolan is upset, but it's not just Christopher Nolan who made this movie. It's hundreds of actors, of people behind the scenes. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people work on these movies, and they're all banking on it being a success because that helps fund these movies. It's an industry. It's not just one man being upset. It's what's going to go in the papers, obviously, but I think he's justified in his thoughts about this, as are all the other filmmakers whose movies are going to be impacted by this. But we're in a real tough time right now. So
I agree.
It's going to hurt. Someone's going to get hurt regardless. There's no kind of clean answer that'll solve everybody's issues.
I agree. Here. Question is for you guys. What do you think of Christopher Nolan's comments? Do you think they were justified? Do you think he could have been a little bit kinder? Do you think he should have been a little bit sharper with his comments? Jump on down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, click like. If you really like this video, click subscribe. And if you really, really like this video, click share. Because that is exactly what Michelangelo from the Ninja Turtles would want you to do. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.